top of the food chain in all trading, whether that be stock trading, options on the stocks, ETFs, sector ETFs, the top of the food chain, aside from the macroeconomic environment, which if you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know I am exceedingly bullish, right? My entire track record for 2024, which is all that matters, right? What am I doing now? What am I doing in March? What have I done this year? All of that maps to, and I just realized that when I look at the numbers that I'm producing for this year, they're all calls. They're all calls because the upside is the path, quite literally, of least resistance. So let's go to the top of the food chain here and talk about the broader averages, because if the broader averages are rallying, we know that certain sectors are going to benefit and therefore certain stocks. So let's go to the top of the food chain and we'll cover the indices, NASDAQ, Dow, S&P, Russell. We'll take a look at bonds. We'll take a look at gold. And heck, let's take a look at crude oil. And hey, you know what? We just had the trade in the Sector Secrets Mastery on Bitcoin. What the heck? Let's take a look at Bitcoin as well. So let's do it. Starting at the top of the food chain, NASDAQ has been a little wobbly with the structure. But if energy has been, when it does appear, up, well, then I'm going to stick with continuation. You know, I think sometimes the word trend is used so much, it's losing some of its punch. So I've just been sort of saying energy, right? If this is the energy, I'm going to go with that. And that means I just need another pullback to the daily price movement range, and I'm going to stick with the long side. Related to the NASDAQ, two best sectors to focus on, semiconductors and communication. Not that consumer discretionary or technology is not up there, but they're not as strong as these two cylinders within the motor of the NASDAQ. Now, let's get to the S&P, because I love the S&P right now for a handful of reasons. Number one, no wobble in the trend, none whatsoever. S&P has not flinched since the beginning of February. We have a 2-month, we have a 1.5 month long, going on 2 months, uptrend that hasn't even at all flinched. Absolutely, where the green meets the gray on the daily price movement ranges, we want to get long. S&P maps to strength in financials, and I love the strength in financials. Also heck, this trend looks even better than the S&P. Hasn't even flinched since the end of January. This is going to benefit stocks like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citi, American Express. These are all the symbols that we focused on the most in the Sector Secrets Mastery. These are the symbols that are going to keep XLF moving higher. And my futures traders out there, that's what's going to keep the S&P, one of the main cylinders, is going to keep the S&P moving higher. Healthcare is another one. Healthcare is another major sector within the S&P. And while it is not in a gorgeous uptrend, hard to say that it's not at least supported, right? Hard to say that it's not at least supported. But this is where index sector stock, S&P to healthcare to stock, having that ability to scan from a top-down approach can land us to stocks like we've got in AbbVie. Is this related to the strength in S&P? In many ways, yes. This is one of the better looking stocks, one of the better looking setups in a strength way within healthcare. It's an outperformer to healthcare in some ways. So this is a long position in AbbVie that does benefit from index sector stock. Let's get on over to the Dow. Dow futures, YM. Uptrend? Yes. Wobbly? Yes. But I certainly want to continue to look to the long side. Now, as we're wrapping up Friday, the Dow is doing something very interesting. It is pulling back to 39,900, and it is pulling back into the daily price movement range. So right now, I'm recording this at 22 minutes after 3. And all of a sudden, a level that I did not think would be in play because we've been hovering around 40,000 is suddenly in play as we're ending the day. And the tempting thing about this is maybe, do we want to look at the long side here? I'll have to go back and look at this because this is actually a really interesting look. Partly why I would continue to be bullish the Dow would be financials, right? Energy, healthcare, and industrials. And industrials have been a fantastic part of the strength in the Dow, even though it's not the high concentration weighted sector. It is a fantastic part of the Dow. And this pullback on the Dow, while a little pronounced, is actually rather interesting. So I'll have to revisit that. But this is what green meets the gray looks like in the context of wobbly, but yes, a confirmed uptrend. Let's go take a look at the Russell. All right, Russell's doing something similar, but unlike the Dow, the main component within the Russell futures are regional banks, and regional banks have not had an easy go. I would prefer to look at regional banks perhaps maybe early next week for a short-term swing. But when I think about index sector stock, or at least index to sector, KRE is still struggling to find some footing. So unlike, for example, financials powering, say, the S&P and the Dow higher, look at that gorgeous trend. Now, wow, financials are really pulling back too. And that's a big reason why the Dow is likely pulling back. Okay. Gosh. I'm no sooner going to probably stop this video and I'm going to hop back into the mastery and take a look at maybe some setups into the close. Holy cow. All right. Anyway, that just gives me a reason to keep plowing through here. Gold. Gold continues to be supported, but here's the thing. I want gold and bonds to be in lockstep. Gold is stronger than the bond market. I would like to be, and because it's in a trend, unlike the long bond. But gold is definitely something I want to buy. The more the ZB futures contract can find its way north of the 200 propulsion, which is the 8 EMA crossing the 200, the more I'm going to be interested in gold. But gold is a very good look at a daily price movement range within the context of a trend. I would just like to see more conviction out of bonds because gold moves based on real yields, and bonds are a big part of, obviously, the calculation of real yields. Crude oil is another gorgeous futures contract. It's a big reason why XLE is strong. It's a big reason why OIH is strong. If we talk about index sector stock alignment, crude oil futures are very much what's influencing what's happening in energy and oil services. So while I don't have a setup right now, we definitely want to keep this on the radar. All right, the weird one here, I'm just going to throw in a little Bitcoin because one of the things that we entered in the mastery today was BITO. BITO is basically 99 point some percent to CME Bitcoin futures contracts. If Bitcoin futures are heading up overall, pulling back to a mean reversion, BITO would be much like trading SPY for ES futures. So overall trend in those Bitcoin futures leading to an opportunity in BITO. And this is what's on the radar. That's what I'm looking at in the futures contracts, in gold, bonds, crude oil, and even Bitcoin. Hey traders, Raghee from Simpler Trading. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to leave a like and a comment below. And remember, subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll get notified of the next update. And when you're ready to join me for live trading, be sure to head on over to simplertrading.com. I'll see you in the next update.